GC लियोंग में क्या है? ये मैंने मानसून बताया है, मानसून में एग्जांपल लिया मुंबई का, ये जनरलाइज है मानसून के लिए। मुंबई में ऑब्वियसली टेम्परेचर कांस्टेंट रहेगा। मानसून, मानसून इन नदर्न हेमिस्फीयर, मानसून इन सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर।
समर में डिसअपीयर हो जाता है।
हाँ,
क्यों होता है सर?
क्या
क्यों होता है?
क्या
समर में
बाद में क्लास के बाद। Good afternoon everyone. So we were doing the air masses. I will quickly revise what is an air mass. Huge body of air having uniform temperature and pressure characteristics is known as an air mass. Fine. Second, air masses develop in the regions which are homogeneous. लिखा कि नहीं हमने? They develop in the homogeneous region. मतलब either only on the land or water surface. Third characteristics of air mass. Air masses develop from the regions which are known as source regions. Homogeneous regions are generally the source regions, and after their development they take up the characteristics of the source regions. Means they will take up the temperature, they may take up the pressure, they may take up any of the characteristics of the source region. After developing from the source region, they may travel to different areas under the influence of winds. They may go eastwards under the influence of trade winds. They may go westwards under the influence of westerlies. So when they reach any surface, the temperature of an air mass, if it is colder than the temperature where it arrives, the temperature of an air mass, not temperature of a place, temperature of an air mass is colder than the temperature where it arrives, it is known as an cold air mass. The temperature of an air mass, if it is warmer than the temperature where it arrives, it is known as a warm air mass. Air masses, when they converge, the boundary of two different air masses is known as fronts. What is front? It is a boundary between the two different air masses. That is why we study the air mass. Next, when the air masses do not develop in the equator. Why? Because equatorial regions have continuous instability or in unstable conditions, while the air masses require stable condition. Stable condition कि अगर किसी की प्रॉपर्टी लेनी है किसी एयर किसी रीजन की, तो इट शुड रिमेन एट अ प्लेस फॉर सफिशिएंटली लॉन्ग टाइम. सो स्टेबल कंडीशंस कभी भी हाई प्रेशर में होंगे, नॉट इन द लो प्रेशर. व्हाई नॉट इन द लो प्रेशर? बिकॉज इन द एरियाज ऑफ लो प्रेशर, इफ दिस इज अ लो, एयर विल बी कंटिन्यूअसली राइजिंग अपवर्ड्स, promoting instability. But if there is an high pressure, air will settle down, और air settle होने के बाद it does not go from this place unless pulled by low pressure with great speed. So it remains over the place for sufficiently long period of time. Hence we say that air masses will develop generally in the subtropical high pressure belt, or in the subpolar low pressure belt also fronts will develop, but not the air masses, subtropical high pressure belt and the polar regions. So there are tropical regions, subtropical regions, and there are polar regions of the development of the air masses. Next thing regarding the air masses, that is the air mass means it has to be stable over the period of time. So when we say air mass has to be stable over the period of time, see what you should know is, imagine a fridge. Fridge को आप बार बार खोल रहे हो, बंद कर रहे हो. Will the air inside remain colder? No. But if the fridge is cold, if it has to be cold, it has to remain closed for a sufficient long time. वही हो रहा है at large scale with the air mass. Where air mass is continuously moving due to winds, कोई air stable नहीं होगी and it will not take up the property of the region. But if the air is very very stable, जैसे fridge ठंडा हो जाता है अंदर, अगर बंद रहेगा, तो air also will become same like what is the ground. Ground, that is what is the source region. So can I say source regions modify the air masses? Source regions will always modify the air masses. Based on the source region can be maritime, that is ocean. They can be continents, that is we will classify them with small m, matlab maritime, small c, that is continental air mass. Maritime can be in the tropical regions, so T is tropical air mass. It can be in the polar regions. So P is the polar air mass, matlab samandar in the polar regions or continent in the polar regions. Continent in the tropical regions, oceans in the tropical regions. The air mass can be cold air mass, which is utilized by the small k. We call this air mass as cold. Why we are not using C again here? Because C has already been used in continental. Then we are having W, small w, that is what is known as an warm air mass. Agar air mass comes from sea to the land, it may give rainfall, and rainfall is instability. So air mass can be small u, unstable, or air mass can be small s, that is stable. Matlab it will promote dry conditions. So based on this, there are 16 types of air masses. And if you can draw this in examination, it will be very good answer, because generally ये table कोई draw नहीं करता, क्योंकि ये NCERT में समझ में ही नहीं आता ये table क्या है. But we'll draw this table. So you should know कि final vacancies कितनी है, that determines also your selection. इस साल 1000 बच्चे कम for interview as compared to last year. 1900 students were only called for interview. 2015-16 में 3500 students were called for interview. You can understand if the vacancies are lesser, matlab answer has to be even better. So because lesser and lesser people will be called for interview. And so actually the game changer is mains. क्योंकि इतना ज़्यादा फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता इंटरव्यू से. दैट इज़ मेरी एक मिस्टेक, जो जिस इसमें इंटरव्यू में अच्छे मार्क्स आए थे उसमें आई डिड नॉट फोकस ऑन आंसर राइटिंग. सो मेरे से कम जिनको मार्क्स थे मेंस में, दे गॉट वेरी गुड मार्क्स इन इंटरव्यू. एंड इंटरव्यू आई बिलीव चाहे हम प्रिपेयर करो ना करो, इट इज़ ऑल अबाउट whether they like your face or they don't like your face. So whether they like your style, क्योंकि एक साल 130 भी मिलते हैं, दूसरे साल 175 भी मिलते हैं. कभी I know a friend who got 108 that year. Next year same board 72. Next year same board, पुरुषोत्तम अग्रवाल का ही बोर्ड था. एक साल 108 out of 300. Next year same board and he got 242 marks out of 300. एक साल में उसको खुद को नहीं समझ में आया कि उसने क्या ऐसे पर्सनैलिटी चेंज कर दी कि एक साल में इतना ज़्यादा डिफरेंस उस बोर्ड को लगा. सो एंड ऑब्वियसली द बोर्ड डिड नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज ऑल्सो हिम. सो दैट इज वाई द रियल गेम चेंजर इज द मेन एग्जामिनेशन. द इंटरव्यू ऑब्वियसली विल डिटरमाइन योर फाइनल रैंक. इंटरव्यू में भी अच्छी तरह से प्रिपेयर करो रादर देन नॉट प्रिपेयरिंग, बट इंटरव्यू इज मोर अबाउट लक. एंड मेन्स के लिए the most important is prelims. So मेंस में तभी चांस मिलेगा जब प्रीलिम्स पास हो.
उसके लिए अभी पढ़ना जरूरी है.
यूपीएससी के लिए वैसे साल भर पढ़ना जरूरी है, अभी नहीं. तो हम बहुत क्या करते हैं, हम बहुत सारी चीज़ें वही चीज़ बार बार अलग अलग जगह से करते हैं. Yesterday we generally get impressed by thick books कि बहुत ज़्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन होगा. इंफॉर्मेशन उतना ही होता है. वे ऑफ राइटिंग इज डिफरेंट, वे ऑफ प्रेजेंटेशन इज डिफरेंट. सो आई फील unless there is vast difference in any of the class notes or any of the current affairs का material or any of the material or any of the lectures, you follow only one source and basic books and revise it again and again. So हमारे geography के लिए there is no need of buying खुल्लर, there is no need of buying Savindra Singh for GS. Our notes will be more than enough and supplement that with NCERT का ये जो मैं कुछ कुछ topics कहता हूँ diagrams. It is more than enough. That is आज जाके complete the climate वाला portion because we are at the end of climatology. बचा है इसके बाद फ्रंट साइक्लोन्स एंड एंटी साइक्लोन्स. एक टेंशन निकल जाएगा कि एनसीईआरटी हो गई 11th स्टैंडर्ड की, you will find only some of the language being different and maybe one or two diagrams being different या एक दो definition extra. क्या करोगे? Write that in the margin. या अगर बहुत चीज़ extra है, फाड़ो उस NCERT को और चिपका दो तुम्हारे notes में. That is the and that will be only the revision. Now when you are doing the notes, air masses हमने 3 pages में लिखा है, but for prelims it is not required. So make micro notes out of it. होमोजीनियस रीजन्स, हर एक को अपने नोट्स खुद बनाने पड़ेंगे बिकॉज कोई HS लिखेगा मतलब होमोजीनियस सरफेस, कोई लिखेगा सेम सरफेस. दिस माइक्रो नोट शुड बी कि इट शुड हेल्प यू इन रिवीजन, क्योंकि माइक्रो नोट्स बहुत ज़्यादा काम आएंगे इंडियन ज्योग्राफी में. इंडियन ज्योग्राफी इज हाईली फैक्चुअल इन नेचर. सो एयर मासेस नॉट ओवर इक्वेटर, सोर्स इज होमोजीनियस सोर्स रीजन and 16 types of air masses. Monsoon कौन से टाइप का एयर masses है? क्या है? fronts. So what are fronts? Fronts का definition, convergence of two air masses. दो टाइप के front है, cold front, warm front, heavy rainfall, light rainfall. And ये दोनों मिला के है temperate cyclone. So इसी notes में this is what is known as mind map. Cyclone is of two type, tropical and temperate. यहाँ पे एक डायग्राम बना दिया. अगर नोट्स की अच्छी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, डायग्राम में बता देगा लो प्रेशर सेंटर हैविंग एंटी क्लॉकवाइज सर्कुलेशन इन नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर और लो प्रेशर सेंटर हैविंग क्लॉकवाइज सर्कुलेशन इन द सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर. सो दिस विल हेल्प यू इन रिवाइजिंग मेनी ऑफ द थिंग्स. अदरवाइज इफ यू फील कि ये बाद में ये नोट्स बहुत इजीली रिवाइज होंगे, दिस आर नोट्स विल आल्सो बी बल्की फॉर यू. फिर भी ज्योग्राफी इज वन सब्जेक्ट विच इज़ वेरी कंसेप्चुअल, ज़्यादा उसमें टेंशन नहीं होता, बट हिस्ट्री में ऐसा करना इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट. वेवल प्लान ने क्या कहा, कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान ने क्या कहा, या पॉलिटी में ये बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट है. किसको कौन अपॉइंट करता है, कौन रिमूव करता है, किसका कौन सा एज ऑफ रिटायरमेंट है, किसके अपॉइंटमेंट में कौन सी बॉडी है, ऑल दिस फैक्चुअल डेटा. सो या और करंट अफेयर्स के लिए भी ये माइक्रो नोट्स बहुत काम आएंगे. बट करंट अफेयर्स का माइक्रो नोट्स का तुम्हें एंड में मिलेगा, इंस्टीट्यूट से सब मिलेगा बट एंड में मिलेगा. अब एंड में कितना आप रिवाइज कर पाओगे, दैट विल डिपेंड ऑन हाउ मच कोर सब्जेक्ट्स यू हैव कवर्ड राइट नाउ. एंड के लिए इकोनॉमी छोड़ दिया, पॉलिटी छोड़ दिया, तो यू विल नॉट डू करंट अफेयर्स. और करंट अफेयर्स अभी करोगे और यू विल थिंक कि मतलब करंट अफेयर्स इफ यू फोकस टू मच राइट नाउ and you leave the core portions behind, then it will not make that much sense because this current affairs anyways that is so factual कि बाद में revise करना पड़ेगा. So proper balance studies कि current affairs थोड़ा बहुत कर लिया दिन में 1 घंटा, नहीं तो इनसाइड से भी देख रहे हो, यहाँ से भी देख रहे हो, विजन का भी देख रहे हो, फोरम आईएस का भी देख रहे हो, और एक यूट्यूब का वीडियो भी देख रहे हो, एंड ऐसे 5 घंटे जा रहे हैं करंट अफेयर्स में ही, कंसोलिडेट कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. So it will not make any difference. That videos are very good. Every source is good of current affairs. The videos are also very good, provided उस वीडियो का आपके पास नोट्स है. Because रोज 1 घंटे का वीडियो है. So will you be able to revise at the end of a month 30 hours of video? So after the end of 3 months, 90 hours of videos. After the end of 4 months, 140 hours, 120 hours of video? No. So you should have something written in only your format. So try to make micro notes of the topics as much as possible, whether it is current affairs, and everyone will have to make their own notes because your notes, micro notes are understood only by you. So you can go, विनील कृष्णा के आज भी notes है market में, he is a 6th ranker हर subject के. Micro notes of many toppers are available in this market. Try reading them. खरीद तो लोगे आप, ट्राई रीडिंग देम, कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा. तो उससे अच्छा खुद से ही नोट्स बनाओ, माइक्रो नोट्स, एंड दैट विल कीप यू डिसिप्लिन्ड ऑल्सो. ऐसा लगेगा अभी कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, बट मे में यू विल सडनली रियलाइज कि यू आर मच मच अहेड ऑफ द कॉम्पिटिशन बिकॉज यू हैव वर्क स्लोली. वो कछुए वाली बात हमेशा याद रखना. हम ऑलवेज रिमेंबर द टॉर्टॉइज, ही कंसिस्टेंटली वर्क्स एंड विन्स द रेस. ऑन अदर हैंड rabbit thinks he is very superior, he is very intellectual. He मॉडर्न इंडिया की बेसिक बुक्स के बदले वो भाषण पढ़ने लग जाता है. भाषम कंप्लीट ही नहीं करता. Then rather than doing the NCERTs, he takes very hi-fi books, searches the internet, does the YouTube का video. So friend circle में बहुत ज़्यादा कि अरे वाह कितना knowledgeable है. So or he gets a positive response and he will keep on wasting the time. Ultimately 2nd June को the fall down. So this is what there will be 16 types of air masses. So based on the 16 types of air masses, we will just see this diagram is given even in the NCERT, but you will first understand what this diagram is. So what are the 16 types of air masses? So we can classify the air masses into tropical air mass, whether it develops in the tropics, capital T, or we can classify them into what is dusra air mass? Polar air mass, that is developed into capital P. Now this tropical air mass can be further divided into whether it develops on the marine surface or whether it develops on the continent. So can I say maritime tropical small m capital T and continental tropical air mass CT. Similarly, the polar air mass can be further divided into maritime polar air mass and continental polar air mass CP. Fine. Keep a blank page, ये बड़ा diagram होगा. Maritime tropical air mass can be further, depending upon the area it visits, maritime tropical warm air mass or maritime tropical cold air mass. Similarly, continental tropical air mass can be continental tropical warm or continental tropical cold. Maritime polar warm, maritime polar cold. Continental polar warm, continental polar cold air mass. Fine. अब this warm air mass, tropical warm air mass, if it is originating on the land and goes towards the sea, it does not have moisture, so it will not give rainfall. But if it is coming from sea to the land and it is forced to rise up due to mountain barrier, it already has moisture, it will cool and it will give the rainfall. So can I say maritime tropical warm air mass can be further classified into maritime tropical warm stable if it does not give the rainfall and maritime tropical warm unstable air mass. Understanding this, everyone? Stable and unstable. Maritime tropical cold stable, maritime tropical cold unstable. Continental tropical warm stable, continental tropical warm unstable. Continental tropical cold stable, continental tropical cold unstable. Same maritime polar warm stable, maritime polar warm unstable. Maritime polar cold stable, maritime polar cold unstable, continental polar warm stable, continental polar warm unstable. क्या है, हम warm को whether it is giving rainfall or not giving the rainfall. Continental polar cold stable, continental polar cold unstable. How many types of air masses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are the 16 types of air mass. कुछ रटने की जरूरत नहीं है. Understand the concept. W. So what will be this importance of this air masses? If the stable air mass goes into the area, it may promote dry conditions. If the unstable air mass comes, it may promote wet conditions. अगर colder है तो snowfall, wet conditions में. अगर warmer है तो rainfall. Dry and warm है तो heat waves. So these are the kinds of the air masses that will come in a region. Fine with this? Give me a minute. मी क्लास मध्ये मैम का फोन आया था. मैम को बोलना मैं क्लास में हूँ शायद. आफ्टर द क्लास. Fine with this? So now you can say air mass मतलब क्या है? Nothing but complication of a subject. क्योंकि वैसे practically कुछ utility नहीं है इसकी. This is just to predict the rainfall, to predict the future climate. कि हमने चीज़ों को जो है, देखो जो एक बड़ी हवा है, उसको हमने एरियाज में ब्रेक कर दिया. उस एरियाज में ब्रेक करके किसी को नाम दे दिया लोकल विंड, किसी को नाम दे दिया रीजनल विंड, किसी को नाम दे दिया रेनफॉल. डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द काइंड ऑफ एन रेनफॉल, अगर रेनफॉल इज वेरी लेस, उसको ही हमने नाम दे दिया ड्रिजल, टू मेक थिंग्स ईजी फॉर अस टू अंडरस्टैंड. सो सिमिलरली इफ एन एयर इज वेरी बिग इन एन एरिया, इंडियन ओशन के ऊपर की एयर, नीदर यू कैन कॉल देम विंड्स. व्हाई? बिकॉज विंड्स ओनली आर एट द सरफेस, बट एयर इज अ 3-dimensional concept. So you will call it as an air mass. Getting it? So that is why we have come with the concept of an air masses. अब air masses का concept has been negated. वैसे world level पे ये पुराना concept है. No longer in the books which are proper books of geography जो foreign authors लिखते हैं, you will not find air masses mentioned there. But India में आज भी air masses पे question पूछा जाता है. Because air masses से better concept is jet stream. That is, we have, this is the new concept, but still they will ask you about the air masses. Example, last year. So generally whatever the question that came in the mains last year, उसके basis पे, remember these are the tricks. क्यों कुछ लोग prelims यूँ पास हो जाते हैं? जो पूछा जाता है पिछले साल prelims में, mains में, उसके लिए वो prelims के लिए prepare करके जाते हैं. So air masses can come in the preliminary examination this year. जो क्वेश्चंस प्रीलिम्स में पूछते हैं वो क्वेश्चंस मेंस के लिए प्रिपेयर करके जाते हैं. दैट इज 2 जून पे इफ एनी टॉपिक इज आस्क्ड इन द प्रीलिम्स, उसका दे विल मेक क्वेश्चन आंसर एंड गो फॉर द मेंस. सो इन दिस वे इफ देयर आर सम, एंड जितने भी पास्ट ईयर प्रीलिम्स के क्वेश्चन है वो रट के जाते हैं. एग्जाम्पल बुद्धा वाला क्वेश्चन, You look at the year 2014, what are the places that Buddha visited? किसी को पता नहीं. Just 3 days before the preliminary examination, UPSC releases the answer key. There are some students जो answer key रट के जाते हैं, because उनको ये रहता है कि why I made the mistake. So answer key वो रट के गए. And 2015 में 6 questions of 2012, 13, 14 came as it is in 2015 का preliminary examination, and Buddha का question तो without changing the option also. So 2015 I remember, because that was the era, that was the time when we had won a court case in the lower court regarding there was some issue with UPSC ka final result. So we had put a court case. It is the most famous court case, and because of that court case at least UPSC answer की तो देने लग गई, and it has started giving you कितने prelims में right है कितने prelims में wrong है. Before 2012 you see कभी नहीं आता था. So that in that court case last moment पे we won in CAT, Central Administrative Tribunal, and because we won in the Central Administrative Tribunal, कहाँ पे we most of the there were 30 students, all of us we had filed in the CAT of the Allahabad. So we got a center 6 days before the exam. When we won the case 6 days before the exam, UPSC allowed us to write. जब कोर्ट का है तो यूपीएससी काम है कि आपका फॉर्म भरा के लेना, ये सब करना. कोर्ट ने बोला अलाउ देम टू सिट इन द प्रीलिम्स. ऑब्वियसली वी आर नॉट एलिजिबल कि ऑनलाइन हम फॉर्म भर पाए. तो आई सॉ दैट डे कोर्ट का पावर. 5 फोन फ्रॉम यूपीएससी. आई डिड नॉट पिक अप कि प्लीज फॉर्म भरो, प्लीज फॉर्म भरो. So when I said that, when some of the students including me said that we are at different places, आप सिर्फ साइन और फोटो भेज दो हम फॉर्म भर देंगे. So they wanted to make sure that they should not come into contempt of court कि इनको एग्जामिनेशन में क्यों नहीं बिठाया. So the forms were filled by UPSC till the one day before the exam. There was one student who was out of India. He came to India, he filled the form. फिर उसको कौन देगा हॉल टिकट? There was a person from UPSC standing at the center taking his hall ticket ki ye lo print out and plus please go and sit the examination. So this is the power of the court. And remember, CAT is the lowermost court. This is not even high court, this is not even Supreme Court. So we filled, we went to Allahabad. All of us were given the same hall, ek to Allahabad mein, and there were many students, most of them were working. Koi state services mein tha, koi teaching mein tha, koi प्राइवेट सेक्टर में था. बिकॉज 3 साल बाद जब अटेम्प्ट मिलता है, ऑब्वियसली यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू वेट फॉर 3 years. सो इन दैट टाइम आउट ऑफ दिस 30 स्टूडेंट्स हु वेर देयर, 29 स्टूडेंट्स क्लियर द प्रीलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन उस हॉल में से. क्यों? क्योंकि सब एक्सपीरियंस थे, सबको पता था कि क्या करना है लास्ट मोमेंट में. आई रिमेंबर आई फिल्ड द फॉर्म ऑफ 12th of June एंड 22nd June को एग्जाम था. उससे पहले हमें पता भी नहीं था हमें अटेम्प्ट मिलेगा कि नहीं, बट वी कुड ऑल क्लियर द एग्जामिनेशन. हमारा इफ़ यू गो एंड सी द 2015 का रिजल्ट, हमारा रोल नंबर अलग ही है ऊपर कि ये स्पेशल कैटेगरी है. सो 10,01,000 to 10,31,000, 31 स्टूडेंट्स वेर देयर. ऑब्वियसली मेंस में हम लोग हार गए. वी लॉस्ट इन हाई कोर्ट, वी लॉस्ट इन सुप्रीम कोर्ट, बिकॉज जो हमारा वकील था ही कुड नॉट argue properly. Why he could not argue properly? Because CAT तक तो normal lawyers थे. When we went to Supreme Court, High Court, हमारा वकील नॉर्मल सबने 5-5, 10-10 हज़ार रुपये जमा करके जो 31,000 में, मतलब जो भी 3 लाख में जो वकील किया था, और उसके खिलाफ था सॉलिसिटर जनरल ऑफ इंडिया, एडवोकेट जनरल ऑफ इंडिया. सो विद द बैटरी, ऑब्वियसली जज भी देखेंगे कि ये कौन है. सो लास्ट में तो हमें जज ने बोला, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज ने बोला कि एटलीस्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने हमारी केस तो ले ली. नहीं तो व्हेन आई वेंट टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट आई सॉ हाउ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ट्रीट्स द केसेस. एनी केस, व्हाट इज दिस केस, 2 minutes 30 seconds द लॉयर विल स्पीक, एंड इफ जज डज नॉट लाइक इट, फेंक देता है फाइल. डोंट ब्रिंग सच केसेस, फाइन ऑन यू. दे लिटरली थ्रो द फाइल्स अवे. एटलीस्ट वी वेर हर्ड. लास्ट में the judge, what was there, judge said that, see, we know that there are many discrepancies in UPSC, but we don't want to open the Pandora's box. Pandora's box means we don't want to open this problems. Otherwise, because for some for better public good. So for better public good, if a small minority of the population suffers, it is fine. So that was the, and but it उसने UPSC को डाटा and बोला कि make your processes more transparent. Tell what is the scaling, how you try to manage so many optionals. किसी ऑप्शनल में ऊपर का मार्क्स, किसी ऑप्शनल में नीचे का मार्क्स, एंड इट सेड दैट आरटीआई में पेपर खुले करो मेंस के, जिसको यूपीएससी ने मना कर दिया, सेइंग दैट इफ आरटीआई में पेपर ओपन होता है तो कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स वाले हमारा मार्किंग पैटर्न समझ जाएंगे एंड दे विल मेक अ यूज ऑफ दैट मार्किंग पैटर्न. सो इवन दैट इज फाइन, वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट. सो all this made, and the last में the court, the judge also said to the students, it's fine, it's a phase of life, you go and do something else. So UPSC हुआ नहीं हुआ, you do something else, etc. So what I learned from that is, see, it's not easy to fight large institutions, because CAT में हम जब जीत गए थे, always the judge who was favoring us, and remember, when I can say this on record, that means it is totally true. So all the judges that were favoring us, they were transferred. It is not easy to fight a big organization such as Government of India. High Court में वो सब नहीं, because why we lost? Because final judgment of CAT was not in our favor. Why the final judgment was not in our favor? Because 3 judges who favored the students, they were changed. Why they were changed? Because CAT is appointed by DOPT. It is not under high courts, and DOPT is an administrative body. Tribunals are under DOPT, Department of Personnel and Training, and that time we realized कि UPSC is not as powerful as it is meant. हमें लगता है UPSC से powerful is DOPT. UPSC is always favor the students, because हमें जो inside information वो सब मिलती थी कि ऐसे court case लड़ो, ऐसे होगा, it was all done by UPSC. UPSC always thinks for students. ये जो मैकेनिज्म जो बैठा है डीओपीटी में, who are at a very senior level, उनको ग्राउंड रियलिटीज पता नहीं है, they make the rules and UPSC will just implement the rules. The only thing they have made sure is they will not interfere in UPSC, because we saw one thing, that when UPSC का lawyer used to be absent when there was hearing, yeah, he used to be present and he used to keep silent. अपोज करता था सिर्फ डीओपीटी का लॉयर. यूपीएससी बहुत बार अपना लॉयर भेजता ही नहीं था, बिकॉज यूपीएससी ऑल्सो रियलाइज्ड दैट 2011, 12, 13 and 14 देयर हैड बीन लार्ज स्केल डिस्क्रिपेंसीज एंड इतना ज़्यादा अनसर्टेनिटी थी कि मैनी पीपल सफर्ड फ्रॉम दैट. सिलेबस चेंज होते गए, मार्किंग पैटर्न चेंज होते गए, पेपर्स चेंज होते गए over the period of time. It was so much unsure. Why? Because one person who was a UPSC chairman wanted to make this body technocratic. Technocratic, उसने सोचा कि humanities वाले students are not that efficient enough जितने engineers हैं, and therefore CSAT लाया गया. CSAT also came with an agenda that elite should be there in the body, because एक elite bureaucracy एक elite समझता है. That is an, you can say, bureaucracy is Brahmins and state services are. So my uncle, who is now a promotee state service officer, so he says one simple thing, that direct IAS are like swans and promotee IAS are like ducks. कीचड़ में स्वैन भी रहेगा, दैट इज द राजहंस, एंड डक भी रहेगा, बट राजहंस कभी गंदा नहीं होगा एंड हमेशा ब्लेम डक को किया जाएगा कुछ भी अगर गंदा हुआ तो. सो व्हाट ही मीन्स टू से, दिस इज, देयर इज एन एलिटिज्म, एंड इसीलिए देयर वाज सेइंग दैट मे बी स्पेकुलेशन की सीसैट लाया गया, इट्स मेनी पीपल सफर्ड आउट ऑफ दैट. एंड फिर जब लबासना ने कहा कि सीसैट इज सच अ रॉन्ग पैटर्न ऑफ जजिंग द स्टूडेंट्स, एंड प्लस यहाँ पे देयर वाज लार्ज स्केल वायलेंट प्रोटेस्ट हुए थे, उसके बाद यूपीएससी रिमूव्ड द सीसैट, gave one compensatory attempt in 2015 to the students who had appeared in 2011. People like me had filled the form of 2011, which was my last attempt. But हमारे टाइम इफ़ द संडे में एग्ज़ाम है तो इंटरव्यू का रिजल्ट्स यूज टू कम ऑन सैटरडे नाइट 8 o'clock. अभी तो बहुत रिफॉर्म्स आए हैं ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. सो व्हेन दैट ऑब्वियसली संडे में न्यू पैटर्न से एग्जाम है सडनली सी सैट, उससे पहले ऑप्शनल था. एंड इफ आई हैविंग एज, सो बहुत सारे लोगों ने 2011 का अटेम्प्ट स्किप कर दिया था जिनका लास्ट अटेम्प्ट था एंड वे आर हैविंग एज. उनको क्या पता था कि 2015 में उनको कंपेंसेटरी अटेम्प्ट मिलेगा. दैट इज वी हैड फॉट द केस एंड अभी भी केस चल रहा है ऑन द बेसिस दैट 2011-15 में यू कैनॉट से कि जो बैठे थे एग्जाम में उनको 2 अटेम्प्ट. अगर देना था तो जिन्होंने फॉर्म भरा था उनको सबको देना था, नॉट इन जिन्होंने बैठे थे, बिकॉज नो बडी न्यू दिस एंड दैट केस वॉज स्टिल गोइंग ऑन एक्सेट्रा. आज भी कभी कभी कोई ये कहता है दैट इज द टॉप फंक्शनरीज ऑफ RSS, क्योंकि हमें अटेम्प्ट एक ही बॉडी दिला सकती है, नॉट गवर्नमेंट, RSS. So the top functionaries of RSS say that attempt can be given only on one condition, if we want to reduce the age limit. So 3-4 साल के लिए सबको फ्री अटेम्प्ट दो and reduce the age limit. So आज नीति आयोग का रिपोर्ट आया है which says that make the age limit 27 for civil services. Obviously जो होगा नहीं, because the present government is totally against giving extra attempt and it is very obvious. But I learned one thing कि government से गलतियाँ होगी, आपके नसीब में नहीं होगा, you may not get selected, there will be some mistakes committed by institutions. For example, one of our case, one of our friend, he used to stay in Dibrugarh. He sent 1 month before the form, post से भरा जाता था by speed post, but that form postal department ने गलती से वो फॉर्म कभी UPSC पहुंचा नहीं. जब वो वापस आया तो उसका फॉर्म रिजेक्टेड था क्योंकि वो लेट पहुंचा. फॉट अगेंस्ट द पोस्टल डिपार्टमेंट एवरीथिंग, बट सब जाके ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट में हार जाते हैं. इन द एंड पीपल आर गोइंग टू जज यू और द इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑल्सो जज यू, नॉट बाय क्या हुआ आपके साथ, नसीब में था, हमारी गलती थी या नहीं गलती थी. दे आर गोइंग टू जज यू बाय वेदर यू क्लियर द एग्जाम और वेदर यू डोंट क्लियर द एग्जाम. सो डोंट वरी अबाउट दिस. इतना सारा हार्डशिप्स और इतना सारा इसका चांस ही मत दो. बेटर दैन दैट, जब बेस्ट टाइम है स्टडी, और बिकॉज द टाइम कीप्स ऑन चेंजिंग. व्हेन आई वाज डूइंग, व्हेन द कंडीशन वाज वेरी गुड, बिकॉज सेकंड अटेम्प्ट में ही मैं इंटरव्यू में गया था 4 अटेम्प्ट्स में से. दैट वाज द, चलो तब इंटरव्यू में बहुत कम आए थे बिकॉज इंटरव्यू पता नहीं थी. And that time the vacancies were also somewhere around 480 vacancies. So, but in the third attempt was my best attempt and I should have improved on that third attempt, but I did not improve because I thought on focusing only on preliminary exam and answer writing मैंने किया नहीं. मैंने बहुत सारी बड़ी बड़ी बुक्स पढ़ी, but what happened in the end कि मेंस में मुझे मार्क्स, जब मेंस इंटरव्यू में जब मुझे अच्छे मार्क्स आए तो मेंस में मुझे बहुत ख़राब मार्क्स आए. आई वॉज जस्ट 10 marks above the cut off because I could not complete the paper, not because I did not knew the answers, only because I could not complete the paper. I left somewhere around 60-70 marks in optional paper 1 and 40 marks in optional paper 2 and 70 marks in GS. So total this 200-150 नंबर कम. एंड जब मैंने राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस कम की तो फिर माई लक डिड नॉट फेवर मी इन इंटरव्यू. ही गिव मी ओनली 130 आउट ऑफ 300. सो यू शुड ऑलवेज, और बोलते बोलते ऐसे अटेम्प्ट खत्म हो जाते हैं, यू शुड ऑलवेज, अभी तो 6 अटेम्प्ट है, यू हैव मच बेटर चांसेस, बट एज इज ऑल्सो इंक्रीजिंग. Getting it? So don't worry about the institutions, क्या चेंज हो रहे क्या नहीं हो रहे, because government will never accept उसका mistakes. Mistakes is always of the person who fails, and जो successful है उसके कभी mistakes नहीं गिने जाते. So केस वॉज फाइल्ड बिकॉज एसए के मार्क्स, बहुत सारी चीज़ है कि देर आर न्यूमरस केसेस, बिकॉज देर आर पीपल जिनको 200 में से एसए में 6 मार्क्स मिलते हैं. क्या है ये? टाइपोग्राफिकल एरर, 60 के बदले 6 आ गए, या 12 मार्क्स मिल जाते हैं, 126 के बदले 6 आ गए. उनको असली मार्क्स पता भी चल जाते हैं, बट कोर्ट रिजेक्ट सेइंग वी डोंट वांट टू ओपन पंडोरास बॉक्स, क्योंकि एक को रीइंस्टेट कर दिया तो देन ऑल द पास्ट केसेस विल ओपन, बिकॉज गलत सही नहीं होता, वही मैं आप भी समझा रहा हूँ कि गलत सही नहीं होता. इट इज ऑल अबाउट चाणक्य नीति. दैट इज व्हाट इज वन हु विंस इज द सक्सेसफुल. दैट इज देयर इज नो गलत सही, बिकॉज एक आदमी के लिए दे डोंट वांट टू स्टॉप द प्रोसेसेस, अदरवाइज स्टेट सर्विस बन जाएगी यूपीएससी. 3 साल कोर्ट केस ही चल रहा है.
सर एक आदमी के लिए नहीं बोल सकती सर, जो फैसला दे रहा हूँ उसी को उड़ा दे सर.
So you can take down the so you can take down that the air masses modify the surface temperatures, the weather conditions, modify the weather conditions of the areas they visit. Modify the weather conditions of the areas they visit. Modify the weather conditions of the areas they visit. This air masses pick up the characteristics. This air masses pick up the characteristics, that is temperature, pressure, and humidity from the source regions. Temperature, pressure and humidity from the source regions. And modify the weather conditions. Full stop. For example, warm air masses from the tropics influence the temperate regions by increasing the temperature. Influence the temperature by increasing the influence the temperate regions by increasing the temperature. For example, British type of climate. इसका ही एग्जाम्पल, इस एग्जाम्पल का एग्जाम्पल ब्रिटिश टाइप ऑफ क्लाइमेट is an outcome of weather conditions of maritime tropical warm unstable air mass. ब्रिटिश में कभी भी बारिश होती है, टेम्परेचर इंक्रीजेस, क्यों? क्योंकि ट्रॉपिक से एयर जाती है. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, द एयर masses are taken from the source regions under the influence of permanent winds such as easterlies and westerlies. थर्ड पॉइंट, इसका मतलब है कि एक बार अगर सपोज यहाँ पे ओरिजिनेट हुआ एयर मास इन द ट्रॉपिक्स, तो वेस्टर्लीज उसको वेस्ट की तरफ ले जाएगी, अगर ट्रेड विंड है तो उसको ईस्ट की तरफ ले जाएगी. थर्ड पॉइंट, air masses are most significant. Air masses are most significant because they help in the formation of fronts. They help in the formation of fronts. Help in the formation of fronts. Fronts underline karo. Formation of fronts. Full stop. And fronts are the regions where temperate cyclones originate. Fronts are the regions where temperate cyclones originate. Temperate cyclones originate. Full stop. Temperate cyclone को भी underline करो. Now for prelims only, which air mass is Indian monsoon? Southwest monsoon is which air mass? खुद ही को पूछा whether it is tropical or polar. Tropical. So we will come here. Whether it is coming from marine or continent. Marine. So we are coming here. Whether it is warmer or colder. It is warmer. Why it is warmer? Because though the rainfall के बाद the winds become colder. Understand, the winds which are coming are much more warmer because they are carrying the latent heat of Arabian Sea, which is very hot, or the Bay of Bengal, which is very hot. Then they come to India, then they give the rainfall, and uske baad the ground becomes colder. बारिश के बाद ground becomes colder. बारिश से पहले बहुत ज़्यादा गर्मी होती है. So therefore it is an example of an warm air mass. Stable or unstable? So this is nothing but southwest monsoon. This is nothing but southwest monsoon. Maritime tropical warm unstable air mass. Why I have written this in red color? Because ये भी एक air mass है, but it is not important for us right now. But there is one air mass which will give rainfall, but it is much colder as compared to the other area. But वो Madagascar वो सबको influence करता है, not in India. So this is for India. Maritime tropical warm unstable. So कैसे आएगा क्वेश्चन? एक तो डायरेक्टली आएगा maritime tropical warm unstable, या these are internationally recognized short forms. Question can be MTWU also. So maritime tropical warm unstable. Right now we are in which type of climate? Winter season. So is it a tropical air mass or is it a polar air mass? अभी here Delhi में polar से आ रही है wind या it is coming from Himalayas only? Himalayas. So Himalayas at the poles or at the tropics? Tropics. Is it maritime? Is it continent? Continent. Is it warmer or is it colder? Colder. So is it causing rainfall or no rainfall? No rainfall. Rainfall western disturbance से आते हैं, not due to this air mass. So this is winter. नहीं, मरीन, क्योंकि वो मरीन से चेंज होते जाएगा. During winters, northeast monsoon during winters. So I will give you, मेरे को अभी याद नहीं है past year question, पिछले साल का ही past year question है. You can go and see what that question was regarding the air mass. लिखो उसको and keep your answer ready. Stable because it does not have moisture. Yeah, it has moisture but comes over the cold surface, and because it comes over the cold surface, it is forced to come down. Then no rainfall. Anything that does not give rainfall is stable. fronts. Now, what do you mean by fronts? Front, understand, is a sloping boundary. Don't write here, first understand. Sloping boundary. किसके बीच sloping boundary? Where do we find the fronts? In the regions जहाँ पे there is a cold polar easterlies and warm westerlies. Sloping boundary between two contrasting air masses, which diverge or which converge? Which converge. Converging air masses. Why we say sloping boundary? Imagine this, there are two kinds of air. One is the warm air and the other is the cold air. So if this is our ground and the warm air is coming into the regions of an cold air, or the cold air is coming into the regions of warm air. Suppose this is a cold air and this area is a warm air. When they two mix with each other, हमारे घर के जैसी कंडीशंस नहीं होती कि बाजू की रूम ठंडी है और ये रूम गर्म है तो दरवाज़ा खोल दो एसी की हवा आ जाएगी. ये सिर्फ छोटे लेवल पे होता है. एट द लार्जर स्केल्स when the two air masses mix, or when they mix with each other, when they converge, उनका temperature moderate नहीं हो जाता. The cold air picks the warm air and throws it upward. So as a result of this, if we consider the cold air and the warm air, what will happen to the cold air? The cold air will try to settle down and the warm air will go upwards. So this is the warm air which will go upwards, and as a result of this, the warm air will go upwards. As a result of this, we find कि एक boundary बन जाता है between the warm and the cold air, and we call this sloping boundary as fronts. हाँ, क्योंकि ठंडी हवा, गर्म हवा ऊपर रहती है, तो winds एक ही है, air mass and winds only at the surface. If we take 3 dimension, it is known as air masses. क्यों करते हैं 3 dimension? Because जब तक 3 dimension नहीं करोगे, you will not understand the concept of polar vortex और jet streams. Jet streams कब समझ में आता है? जब हम देखते हैं 3-dimensional air movement of air. That is why air masses. If you don't understand polar vortex, you are not going to understand ozone hole. हमने तो एक ही point लिखा है of ozone hole. So this is what is an air mass. We say sloping boundary. Now what is the condition for the formation of air mass? एक तो they should converge and there should be difference of temperature. Now if you ask me where or at what places do the air masses converge? So we see air masses converge at equator. Fine. जहाँ पे trade winds will come and they will converge, and we will call this as ITCZ. The other area where the air masses will converge is the polar, subpolar low pressure belt. जहाँ पे easterlies and the westerlies are going to converge. But why, the question which is coming with regular frequencies, why do air masses do not form at ITCZ? We have solved this. Why? Because there is a convergence of same air masses. The next question they ask you, uska applied is, in spite of two different winds, air masses do not formed at the subtropical high pressure belt because there is divergence. So for air masses, dono conditions should be met. That is the cold air convergence and contrasting. So two different airs and there should be contrasting. Understood? Friends, everyone? Ab, depending upon which air is stronger, agar warm air is moving and entering the territory of cold air, you will call it as a warm front. If the cold air is coming and moving into the territory of warm air, then you will call this as a cold front. Dono ka outcome is totally different. So first we will define what is fronts. Front is very, very important topic from our exam point of view. A sloping boundary, between two contrasting air masses, between two contrasting air masses is known as front. Between two contrasting air masses is known as front. Boundary between two contrasting air masses is known as front. Next point, conditions for the formation of front. Conditions for the formation of front. First condition क्या है? Difference between the properties of air masses. So presence of contrasting air masses. Presence of contrasting air masses. Presence of contrasting air masses. Presence of contrasting air masses in the terms of temperature, pressure and humidity. Temperature, pressure and humidity. देखो, temperature is the most important thing. So underline temperature because temperature is going to influence pressure and humidity. Second, convergence of air. Convergence of air. Convergence of air. So hence air masses and hence air masses develop in the region of convergence of cold polar easterlies, and warm westerlies. Cold polar easterlies and warm westerlies develop in the regions of convergence of cold polar easterlies and warm westerlies. Fine. Types of fronts. There are 4 types of fronts. Warm front, दूसरा cold front, third occluded front, and fourth stationary front. Stationary front. Can someone tell me what does the word occluded means? Occlusion means? So occluded front, occlusion matlab something which is at a height, और occlusion matlab death. ऊपर कौन जाता है? So occlusion matlab death. So you will understand why this front is known as. So you can take down the process of formation of fronts. The process of formation of fronts is known as frontogenesis. Is known as frontogenesis. While the process of death of a front is known as frontolysis. Lysis means death. Genesis means birth. Frontogenesis and frontolysis. Death of a front is known as frontolysis. Frontogenesis causes cyclogenesis. Means किसका जन्म हुआ? साइक्लोन का. Frontogenesis causes cyclogenesis, while frontolysis causes cyclolysis. That is the death of a साइक्लोन. किस साइक्लोन की हम बात कर रहे हैं? ट्रॉपिकल या सब टेम्परेट? temperate. We are not talking about the tropical cyclones. Getting it? Temperate cyclones. Occluded front. Occluded front. Occluded front. Causes death of fronts, matlab frontolysis, death of fronts, frontolysis, which results into death of temperate cyclones, which results into death of a temperate cyclones, which results into death of a temperate cyclones. Now understand what is this front. We will first do what is a warm front, what is a cold front. Occluded front is very easy. Stationary front एक theoretical concept है. It does not occur in reality. Stationary front. This is just for theory building. Stationary front. So this is cold air mass. Easterlies. It is coming from east to west. Easterlies poles, and it is moving right due to the Coriolis force in the northern hemisphere. This is moving to the left in the northern hemisphere, westerlies hai. These two are meeting. Now after meeting, can I say this is the region of cold air, this is the region of warm air, but westerly अपने direction में अंदर जाएगी in the regions of warm air, and easterlies will come southwards and it will enter the regions of cold air, warm air. Cold air will enter the region of warm air, warm air is going to enter the region of cold air. So based on which air is dominant, we call it as a front. For example, if a warm air is dominant and enters the territory of cold air, it is known as warm front. So कहाँ पे है warm front? This is a warm front. Fine? Because the warm air is going into the territory of cold air. Imagine you are looking from the space. On the other hand, if the cold air is dominant and enters the territory of warm air, it is known as an cold front. So this is the region of cold front, this is the region of warm front. Cold air comes into the territory of warm air. Now what will happen in the warm front? What will happen on the cold front? So first we will understand what will happen in the warm front. So what is warm front? Warm air enters the territory of cold air. Which is more powerful, warm air or cold air? Which is more powerful? Cold air. Powerful means कभी भी दंगल मूवी याद रखना. Whenever cold and warm air will meet, दंगल मूवी में क्या है? Boxing और कुश्ती? कुश्ती. So whenever the warm and cold air will meet, warm air will lift the cold air and throw it upwards. So who is more powerful? Cold air is more powerful. So there is cold air on the ground. There is cold air on the ground. Warm air comes with great speed. It is much lighter. It enters the territory of cold air. When it enters the territory of cold air, it cannot displace the cold air from the ground. This is not the diagram for exam. Therefore, the cold air starts rising upwards very gently. The warm air starts rising upwards very gently. धीरे धीरे ऊपर जाएगी because it is a huge mass of an cold air. एक तो आएगी and it will come at great speed and it will be rising upwards comparatively with a gentle slope. ये है side view of a diagram. Geography में when we make diagrams like this and they want to show you a side view, हमेशा नीचे lines होंगे. That means cross section. It shows कि जमीन काटी गई है. So as a result of this, the cold air, warm air comes and it rises without displacing the cold air. And this sloping boundary between the warm and the cold air is warm front. So as the air is going upwards, warm air, understanding this, why it is known as warm front? Everyone? As the air is going upwards, is it cooling now? Yes, it is cooling. Vertically cool हो रहा है या धीरे से inclined manner में? It is cooling in inclined manner. and as a result, because it is cooling in the inclined manner, it will form clouds. Condensation ऐसे हो रहा है, condensation ऐसे हो रहा है, and it will form the clouds. So what are the clouds that are formed along the warm front? The clouds that are formed along the warm front are nimbostratus. Obviously rainfall hoga, so you can directly write nimbostratus, or stratus also you can write. Rainfall hone hi wala hai because the air is going upwards. Altostratus, cirrostratus, and बाद में ऊपर जाके very high clouds are cirrus clouds. And once nimbostratus, you know that it is going to give precipitation. But how will be the precipitation? Gentle or heavy? Gentle. With lightning or thunder, or without lightning or thunder? Without lightning or thunder. For a longer duration or for a shorter duration? For a longer duration, because air धीरे से ऊपर जा रही है. It will occur for a longer duration. So that is warm front and the conditions associated with warm front. अगर इंडिया में बनता है तो gentle precipitation. अगर यूएस में या पोलर रीजन्स में, इवन कश्मीर में बनता है तो gentle snowfall. But precipitation will always be there. It will be either a snowfall or it will be either a rainfall. UPSC had asked you a past year question, how to identify, देखो क्वेश्चन हमेशा इनमें से ही आएंगे. How do you identify warm front from an approaching warm front? Approaching warm front मतलब एक बार ये front बन गया तो पीछे से जो clouds है, जो winds है, they are going to push it. So how do you identify an approaching warm front? So that means you are standing here and आपको देखना है कि sky में warm front आ रहा है कि नहीं आपकी तरफ. So which clouds do you see in the sky? The presence of cirrus clouds in the sky say that the warm front is approaching. Getting it? ये नहीं समझ में आया. Once this is what is a warm front. Once it is developed, it will move towards the west. It will move towards the west under the influence of westerlies. Getting it? So how do you identify? It is moving towards the west. Yeah, when it is moving towards the west, if you are standing here, कहीं दूर वाराणसी में, और warm front has developed over Delhi, कैसे पता लगेगा that warm front has developed and it is moving towards the east? How will you understand that it is coming towards India, Varanasi? By looking at cirrus clouds in the sky. ये point और clear हो जाएगा once we do the temperate cyclone. So this is what is an warm front. Very easy. You will understand why it goes to the east. Let me come to the temperate cyclone. Temperate cyclone, this is nothing but warm front is nothing but temperate cyclone. If I mix too many things, you will get confused. So you get, first take down warm front. Diagram exam के लिए I am drawing here. ये वाला एग्जामिनर को समझ में नहीं आएगा कि आपने क्या बनाया. So ground, cold air, warm front, warm air, it is coming from here and it is going upwards. So this is the diagram for exam. This is the, so you can take down can I continue? Warm front topic. So it develops in the regions, when the warm air is active, and enters the territory of an cold air, when the warm air is active and enters the territory of cold air, Next point. The warm air being lighter, it rises upwards along a gentle slope, underline the word gentle, along a gentle slope, such a gentle slope or such gentle slope is known as warm front, Weather conditions. As the air rises upwards gently, it cools slowly, forming stratus clouds. ये सब मत लिखना, निम्बो, अल्टो, ये अंडरस्टूड है, दैट विल बी ऑन द हाइट. क्यों? क्योंकि एयर धीरे से ऊपर जा रही है. सो जो कूलिंग हो रहा है, इट इज ऑकरिंग इन अ शीट लाइक मैनर. So whenever it is occurring in a sheet like manner, it is stratus clouds, forming stratus clouds, which gives gentle to moderate precipitation, occurring for longer duration, gentle to moderate precipitation for longer duration. That's it. Very easy to understand. Upwards. Now you should also know that ये जो area मैंने बनाया है, it can be Punjab and this can be UP का end. It is a very big phenomena, धीरे से ऊपर जा रही है, and it is giving an region precipitation for longer duration. Now understand what is an cold front. Can I rub this diagram? So what will be the cold front? We have a diagram for reference of a warm front up. The warm air, the cold air is active and it enters the territory of which air? Warm air. Warm air का height हम ज़्यादा बनाएंगे in our reference diagram because it is lighter. The cold air is coming downwards. It is coming downwards and it is flowing with very, very less speed. Why it is flowing with less speed? Because friction is more. So when it comes and in the contact with the warm air, which air will go up? Warm air. But how does that warm air goes up? The warm air goes, that is the cold air will come and vertically throw the warm air upwards. हम क्या लिख रहे हैं? Vertically throws, not lifts. Gently, it vertically throws. So reality में ऐसे, as soon as they touch, the warm air will become unstable and it will rise upwards, resulting into a formation of a very steep slope. जहाँ से this air is rising upwards. Understand gentle, understand steep slope, and this is what is known as an cold front. अब whenever there is a steep slope, which cloud will come? Cumulonimbus. And whenever there is a cumulonimbus cloud, आगे you know it is associated with heavy rainfall, lightning, thunder, but of a shorter duration. क्यों? क्योंकि इट विल कम एंड लिफ्ट द वार्म एयर अपवर्ड्स वर्टिकली. नाउ जितना ज्यादा टेम्परेचर डिफरेंस बिटवीन दिस टू एयर मासेस, कोल्ड एंड वार्म एयर मासेस, उतना वर्टिकली द वार्म एयर विल बी लिफ्टेड. एंड इसीलिए आप देखते हो इन यूएसए which does not have east-west mountains like Himalayas or like Alps. So the polar air can come to the interior parts of USA. Understanding this? If this is our USA, our USA means हमारा diagram का USA. There is no mountain which will stop the polar air. The polar air comes in the southern parts of USA, which is warmer, and as a result, when the cold and warm air will mix, USA में very dangerous atmospheric disturbances known as tornadoes are very, very common. So tornado is an example of an cold front. What is tornado? Have you seen tornado? Movies में, obviously, वैसे तो कोई नहीं देख सकता. तो कौन सी मूवी है टॉर्नेडो के लिए? ट्विस्टर. That is when the cold and the warm air will mix. The warm air is vertically thrown upwards and it results into the formation of tornado. बहुत ही strong air movement which goes upwards. Tornado is the most dangerous of all atmospheric disturbance. Why? Because tropical cyclones wind speed 300 kilometers per hour, 120 kilometers per hour. Tornado minimum wind speed 700 kilometers per hour. This is such a small low pressure center, but there is so much greater difference between this low pressure warm air and the high pressure कि घर के छत automatically उड़ जाते हैं, bottles के cork automatically खुल जाते हैं, and sometimes bodies भी burst हो जाती है because you are in the so much low pressure zone. That is, body का pressure बढ़ जाता है and body will tear apart, it will throw apart. That is what is tornado. Thankfully, tornado do not develop in India because tornadoes are so dangerous, and best thing about the tornado is tornado कभी अकेला नहीं आएगा. They always occur in groups. Imagine what would have happened in India if it developed in the Great Plains, which are already densely populated. But India में नहीं हो सकता because Himalayas protect us. Tornadoes are very common in USA because there is no mountain barrier like Himalayas. Because this is cold front. Cold air is coming into the territory of warm air. So warm air is always in the southern side. Warm air is USA. Warm air कहाँ पे है? Southern side. ऊपर तो cold air है, so cold front cannot. यहाँ पे this is the region of warm front, this is the region of cold fronts. So extensive cold fronts will result into tornadoes. Extensive and normal cold front India में भी आता है. So some days back you had a rainfall at night. How was the rainfall? Very heavy or drizzle? Drizzle. That is warm front precipitation. कुछ and February में जो rainfall होगा just before, that is just बैसाखी we will celebrate कि गर्मी आ गई है, and उसके बाद end of February, Jan and early Feb एक ऐसा cold wave आएगा इंडिया में कि you are going to blame, अरे गर्मी हमें लगा, मैंने स्वेटर पैक कर दिया था, फिर से स्वेटर निकालना पड़ेगा. That is because that is the time when the cold fronts arrive in India. Cold front या warm front is both, दोनों को हम नाम दे देते हैं western disturbances. Because they are nothing but temperate cyclone is made up of one part is warm front, one part is cold front. पिछले साल cold front precipitation occurred on 26th Jan. Whenever there is front, rainfall भी होगा, but can you see उसके साथ साथ there will be formation of fogs. Why? Temperature inversion. So initially there will be temperature inversion and then the temperature inversion will be removed. So अगर कुछ दिनों में that day we learned about western disturbances, शाम को हो गया. So अगर आज heavy rainfall आता है along with lightning and thunder, you should know it is cold front. अगर light rainfall आता है then it is warm front. इन दोनों को हम कहते हैं temperate cyclones.
So यहाँ पे जो cold front होगा वो हिमालयाज़ की एयर की वजह से?
नहीं. We'll do that while.
यहाँ पे तो warm air है.
क्यों नहीं है warm air? It is all relative. Warm does not mean it is extremely warmer. थंडरस्टॉर्म मतलब मैकेनिज्म सेम है. थंडरस्टॉर्म हमारे यहाँ पे होता है, वी कॉल इट एज आंधी एक्सेट्रा. मैकेनिज्म दोनों का सेम है, बट टॉर्नेडो इज वेरी डेंजरस, वेरी लो प्रेशर एरिया. नहीं नहीं नहीं, they will occur either in the subtropical regions or in the polar regions. Understanding the difference? So what you will be writing, what is the keyword? Warm front, gentle. ये steep. Air vertically rises upwards. Cumulonimbus cloud, stratus clouds. आगे का फिर आपको पता ही है stratus में क्या है, cumulonimbus में क्या है. Getting this? सिर्फ एयर कभी भी सीधी ऊपर नहीं जाएगी. वी कैन नॉट शो इट. एयर विल ऑलवेज गो अपवर्ड्स इन अ स्पाइरलिंग मैनर. फाइन, कैन आई कंटिन्यू? कोल्ड फ्रंट. कोल्ड फ्रंट occurs when cold air is active, and this cold air enters the subtropical regions or the regions of warm air. The subtropical regions or the regions of warm air. Subtropical regions or the regions of warm air. As the cold air is denser, it travels with slow speeds. And when it comes in the contact with warm air, the cold air vertically throws the warm air. Forming a steep slope. Vertically throws the warm air, forming a steep slope. Known as cold front. Weather conditions. Cold front causes cumulonimbus cloud, which gives heavy precipitation, along with lightning and thunder. but over a smaller area, over a smaller area, इसका एरिया देखो, ये पूरा बारिश होने वाली है, इसका एरिया देखो, ओनली स्मॉलर एरिया, and of a shorter duration, Next point. In North America as a continent, in North America, as there is an absence of east-west mountain barrier, cold polar easterlies enter the Great Plains. USA में भी Great Plain है, Great Plains which are known as prairies, Great Plains, forming tornadoes, or twisters, tornadoes or twister. ट्विस्टर नाम की मूवी भी है, फॉर्मिंग टॉर्नेडोज और ट्विस्टर. फाइन. थंडरस्टॉर्म ही होता है, हमने लिखा है, दे आर नोन एज थंडर क्लाउड. लाइटनिंग एंड थंडर मतलब क्या? थंडरस्टॉर्म तो लिखा है ना. Thunderstorm is a different phenomena. Don't mix this two. Thunderstorm is a different phenomena. वो हम कल करेंगे thunderstorms. But warm front ऊपर है वो, उसकी कम स्पीड होती है. If a tornado is formed on the water bodies, water is vertically thrown upwards, forming water spout. Water spout. Have you seen some photos जिसमें समंदर से पानी ऐसे ऊपर जा रहा है? That is a cold front. I'll show you the photos tomorrow. We'll first complete all these things. I'll show you the photos tomorrow then. Water spout, tornadoes, etc. What? Yes, the same water spout. महाराष्ट्र में नहीं हो सकता. Not tornado. ये फिनोमेना हो जाएगा, but not tornado. Occluded front. Now you tell me what is happening in the region of cold air, cold front. कौन सी एयर ऊपर जा रही है? Warm air. नीचे कौन सी बचेगी? Once a cold front is completed, cold air. What is happening in the warm front? कौन सी air is going upwards? Warm air. So which air will remain on the ground? Cold air. So that is when we say occluded front. So in the end क्या होगा? Whether it is warm front or cold front, cold air will come down and the warm air will be thrown upwards. So when this entire process happens, when the cold air totally displaces the warm air from the ground, means ground पे there is no warm air, whether in the cold front, whether in the warm front, you call that front as an occluded front. मतलब जमीन पे कौन सी एयर है? Cold. ऊपर कौन सी एयर है? warm. So what is front? Cold and warm air are in the sloping boundary. Once an occluded front is formed, cold air is on the ground, warm air is above. So ये front रहेगा या it is a death of a front? Death, because it is not a sloping boundary. ये तो temperature inversion है. So therefore we say occluded front is associated with frontolysis and also death of a cyclone. So what do you mean by occluded front? When the cold air completely displaces the warm air from the ground. So air कौन सी ऊपर फेंकी जा रही है? Warm. Therefore occlusion, rising up. Getting it? Occluded front, कोई weather phenomena होगा? No. So you can take down occluded front. Occluded front occurs when cold air completely displaces the warm air from the ground. Cold air completely displaces the warm air from the ground. Completely displaces the warm air from the ground. Completely displaces the warm air from the ground. Or in other words, मैं NCERT की line दे रहा हूँ. In other words, when the cold front completely overtakes the warm front. Cold front completely overtakes the warm front. You will understand what does this line means when doing the cyclones. We are going to start now. So the diagram for the occluded front is this. First you draw the diagram, I will explain you the diagram. Draw these diagrams in the exam. Have you finished this? क्या मीनिंग है इस डायग्राम का? वेदर एरिया इज अ रीजन ऑफ वार्म फ्रंट, मतलब लो प्रेशर, इसलिए हाइट कम हो रही है ट्रायंगल की, और द रीजन ऑफ कोल्ड फ्रंट मतलब हाई प्रेशर. दोनों जगह ग्राउंड पे देयर विल बी कोल्ड एयर एंड वार्म एयर विल बी थ्रोन अपवर्ड्स. सो इसलिए हम ये वार्म फ्रंट बना रहे, ये कोल्ड फ्रंट बना रहे, बता रहे कि सब सारे फ्रंट्स विंड्स कंबाइन हो गए, फ्रंट खत्म हो गया, एक जगह दो फ्रंट नहीं हो सकते. सो ऑन द ग्राउंड देयर इज कोल्ड एयर, ऊपर देयर इज एन वार्म एयर. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज ऑक्लूडेड फ्रंट. क्या है ये डायग्राम? इंस्टेड ऑफ मेकिंग अ हॉरिजॉन्टल ग्राउंड, आप ग्राउंड इसमें दिखाते हो एज ट्राइंगल. व्हाई एज ट्राइंगल? इट इज एन ज्योग्राफिकल proper scientific way of representation, जहाँ पे triangle represents barometric pressure, high pressure, low pressure. ये सब लिखना नहीं है एग्जाम में. This is a way of showing diagrams. And ground पे it is cold air. So जिस समय जहाँ पे low pressure है warm front, जहाँ पे high pressure है cold front. So and the warm air has gone upwards. Understanding this? In simple words, ये diagram ऐसे रहेगा. If you want to understand, ground पे there will be only cold air and ऊपर there will be warm air. ये वार्म एयर यहाँ से धीरे से ऊपर जाएगी वार्म फ्रंट से, एंड जहां जहां कोल्ड फ्रंट है वो वर्टिकली ऊपर जाएगी, देयरफॉर ऑक्लूडेड। अंडरस्टूड द डायग्राम? लास्ट लाइन जो एनसीईआरटी की मैंने डिक्टेट की है, when the cold front overtakes the warm front, you will understand now when we are doing the temperate cyclone. Fine with this? Stationary front. डायग्राम समझ में नहीं आया? डायग्राम कुछ नहीं, बहुत सिंपल है। कोल्ड फ्रंट को लिया, वार्म फ्रंट को लिया, दोनों को कंबाइन किया, दिखाया कि वॉट एवर द फ्रंट इज, वार्म एयर इज गोइंग अपवर्ड्स, ऑन द ग्राउंड देयर विल बी कोल्ड एयर। ग्राउंड की रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऐसी है बिकॉज दैट इज द वे ऑफ शोइंग प्रेशर, हाई प्रेशर, लो प्रेशर। तो लो प्रेशर रीजन्स में, हाई प्रेशर रीजन में। सो डोंट गो बाय डायग्राम कि ये ऐसा क्यों है, ये ऐसा है। सो रिमेंबर दिस इज द वे ऑफ ड्राइंग अ डायग्राम। और एनीवेज जीएस में अगर आपने नॉर्मल भी बनाया तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा, ऐसे भी बना सकते हो, बट दिस इज द प्रॉपर वे ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटिंग अ डायग्राम। मतलब so you take down stationary front. A stationary front is formed. Stationary front is formed when the two air masses instead of converging flow parallel to each other, flow parallel to each other. So you can draw the diagram for this. Stationary front क्या है in reality? It cannot be there. This is just a step one for the formation of cyclone. मतलब इनका कहना है अगर आप ऊपर से देख रहे हो तो कोल्ड एयर है, वार्म एयर है, दे आर नॉट कन्वर्जिंग, वे अपनी जगह रुके हैं, वो किसी विसल के लिए चलो अभी साइक्लोन बनाना शुरू करो। सो दैट इज स्टेशनरी फ्रंट, जो ऑब्वियसली रियल लाइफ में होगा नहीं। देन व्हाई वी स्टडी दिस? बिकॉज अभी जब हम करेंगे टेम्परेट साइक्लोन हम लिखेंगे स्टेप 1 फॉर्मेशन ऑफ स्टेशनरी फ्रंट, स्टेप 2 कन्वर्जेंस शुरू हो जाएगा, फिर स्टेप 3, स्टेप 4। सो दिस इज जस्ट फॉर स्टेप 1। ये थियरी यू हैव टू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच। Why are the fronts important? Fronts are important because they help in the formation of temperate cyclones. Fronts are important because they help in the formation of temperate cyclones. So cyclones, what are cyclones? Any idea what is a cyclone? Tell me the cyclone. क्या हो रहा है आंध्र प्रदेश में? अभी बारिश हो रही है। सो बारिश जब होगी ड्यू टू हाई प्रेशर और लो प्रेशर, लो प्रेशर सेंटर। सो कैन आई से साइक्लोन इज अ लो प्रेशर सेंटर क्या है साइक्लोन कि समवेयर देयर इज अ लो प्रेशर सेंटर एंड उसके ऊपर द प्रेशर कीप्स ऑन इंक्रीजिंग in a circular manner. वैसे ये ideal diagram for cyclone is the diagram of tropical cyclone. For example, we show the pressure with the help of isobar. So ये एक isobar है, ये एक isobar है, that is this entire region between these two isobar is having the same pressure. The area between these two isobar is having the same pressure, and then under there will be one pressure. For example, it can be 900 millibars, it can be 910 millibars, 920 millibars, 930 millibars. That is, cyclone is a low pressure center with increasing pressure outwards. Because the pressure increases outwards, what is the law of wind? Wind always flows from high pressure to low pressure. So winds start flowing from the outside high pressure to the central low pressure, ऊपर से दिख रहा है ये, in such a way that they become anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere. They become anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere. ऐसे घूम के हुए जाएगा in an anti-clockwise manner in the northern hemisphere. फिर यहाँ पे जाके the air will rise upwards, or they flow in a clockwise manner in the southern hemisphere. Clockwise manner in the southern hemisphere. And depending upon the difference between the pressure, high pressure and low pressure, that will determine the speed of the wind. If this low pressure and outside high pressure is too great, like tropical cyclone, the wind speed is greater. अगर वो बहुत कम है, like temperate cyclone, the wind speed will be lesser. But this is an idea of an pressure in cyclone in the southern hemisphere. And this is a diagram for the cyclone in the northern hemisphere. So anti-clockwise, घड़ी के opposite direction में in northern hemisphere, clockwise in the southern hemisphere. क्यों? Because of Coriolis effect. इतना ही याद रखना GS के लिए. वैसे Coriolis effect है नहीं इसका only reason. फिर हमें एक थियरी करनी पड़ेगी, जिसको इंटरेस्ट है वो नोट्स ले लेना ऑप्शनल के, फालतू में पढ़ोगे कभी पूछेंगे नहीं यूपीएससी जीएस में, ऑप्शनल में अभी तक नहीं पूछा है, क्योंकि फिर आपको 3 टाइप के विंड्स पता करनी पड़ेगी, सेंट्रीफ्यूगल, सेंट्रीपिटल, प्रेशर ग्रेडियंट, फ्रिक्शनल एंड कोरियोलिस. उन सब का इक्वेशन विल फाइनली डिटरमाइन द साइक्लोन्स का डायरेक्शन. कोई जरूरत नहीं, जीएस के लिए याद रखना ड्यू टू कोरियोलिस फोर्स. पर घर पे जाके ये मत करना कोरियोलिस फोर्स से तो राइट में जाना चाहिए नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर में, पर वो लेफ्ट में जा रहा है, एंड यहाँ पे लेफ्ट में जाना चाहिए तो ये तो राइट में जा रहा है. So Coriolis force is not the reason. Reason is the balance between the Coriolis force and the pressure gradient force, where pressure gradient force becomes so bigger कि वो negate करता है effect of an Coriolis force. नहीं समझ में आएगा so forget it. GS के लिए anti-clockwise and anti-clockwise. So can I dictate cyclones? So cyclones are low pressure centers. Cyclones are low pressure centers surrounded by low pressure centers surrounded by closed isobars, ISOBARS, closed isobars with increasing pressure outwards, with increasing pressure outwards. With increasing pressure outwards. And wind flows from, outside high pressure to the central low pressure. Outside high pressure to the central low pressure in such a way that winds deflect anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere. Winds deflect anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. And clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Deflection जरूरी है cyclones में? Yes. So deflection is caused by which force? Coriolis force. So where identify a region where the tropical cyclones will not originate? On the equator. क्यों? क्योंकि Coriolis force is absent or zero. Next, there are two kinds of cyclones. There are two types of cyclones. Two types of cyclones. Tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones. Which originate between 10 degree north to 30 degree north and 10 degrees south to 30 degree south. It originates between 10 degree north to 30 degree north and 10 degrees south to 30 degrees south. Don't write in the exam 10 to 30 degrees north and south. तो इक्वेटर भी आ जाएगा उसमें. And extra tropical cyclones. Extra tropical cyclones. Or temperate cyclones. Which originate between 35 degree north to 65 degree north and 35 to 65 degree south. 35 to 65 degree south. किसने बोला कोरियोलिस फोर्स मैटर नहीं कर रहा है? हाफ नॉलेज इज ऑलवेज डेंजरस. किसने बोला कि वी आर नॉट कंसिडरिंग द डिफ्लेक्शन? वही तो मैं इतना समझाया कि डोंट वरी अबाउट द डिफ्लेक्शन. इट इज आउट ऑफ योर स्कोप ऑफ जनरल स्टडीज. लेकिन नहीं, वो आएगा ही नहीं कभी. एंड्रू हेवुड कभी पॉलिटी में नहीं आएगा. देयर इज ऑलवेज अ, सो दिस इज अ वेरी कोर. जेट स्ट्रीम्स भी हम बहुत सुपरफिशियली करते हैं. जनरल स्टडीज सिलेबस इज स्टिल 12th. ऑप्शनल सिलेबस इज स्टिल, कोई भी ऑप्शनल टिल पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन हॉनर्स लेवल. डिफरेंस है 12th एंड हॉनर्स लेवल. सो व्हाट आर दिस? These are the areas of tropical cyclone. I can teach you that, but it will take 1.5 hours. और कोई इसका कोई फायदा नहीं होगा. If you want to read, you can read from the optional का notes. and the blue color is the region of temperate cyclones. Region of temperate cyclones. नो नीड ऑफ ड्राइंग दिस एरो, मैं आपको सिर्फ एक्स्ट्रा चीज बता रहा हूं जो हम कल करेंगे. ये जो जितने भी एटमॉस्फेरिक डिस्टर्बेंस है, हरिकेन, टाइफून्स और विली विलीज और साइक्लोन्स, दैट मीन्स ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन्स. And western disturbances means temperate cyclones. This is their normal area of origin. But अब sun is in the southern hemisphere, so ये blue area will shift to the south. इतना भी south नहीं कि पूरे इंडिया को cover कर लेगा, but it will shift slightly to the south, which will cover North India, and therefore temperate cyclones will come to North India and give rainfall, which will call them as western disturbances. Can I continue? So what are the names of tropical cyclones? USA में hurricanes, cyclone Gaja, cyclone Fetai, Indian Ocean में, South China Sea में and Japan में typhoons. कैन यू सी थोड़ा ज्यादा नॉर्थ में है वो. ऑस्ट्रेलिया में विली विलीज. दे ऑल आर इन द ट्रेड विंड बेल्ट एंड टेम्परेट साइक्लोन्स आर इन द वेस्टर्ली बेल्ट. बिकॉज दे आर इन द ट्रेड विंड बेल्ट, उनका डायरेक्शन इज फ्रॉम ईस्ट टू वेस्ट. सो इसलिए इट अफेक्ट्स द ईस्टर्न कोस्ट ऑफ इंडिया ईस्ट टू वेस्ट, बट इट डज नॉट अफेक्ट द western coast of India. We'll do this tomorrow. We'll first do with the extratropical cyclones. So take down extratropical cyclones. They are also known as wave cyclones. Wave cyclones or temperate cyclones or temperate depressions or temperate depressions. Wave cyclones or temperate cyclones or temperate depressions. Next, they originate due to convergence of two contrasting air masses. Originate due to the convergence of two contrasting air masses. They originate due to the convergence of two contrasting air masses. That is, in other words, temperate cyclones are associated with formation of fronts temperate cyclones are associated with the formation of fronts. Associated with the formation of fronts. Next, after their origin, the temperate cyclones move from west to east, क्यों? कौन से winds? Under the influence of westerly winds. Under the influence of westerly winds. Under the influence of westerly winds. Westerly winds. Now, don't draw anything. Understand the formation. क्या है? And then you will have time to draw. पहले they are associated with the formation of fronts. What do you mean by fronts? Convergence of two contrasting air masses. Fine. So ये cold air is coming into the area of warm air is going into the area of cold air. So ये warm front and this is cold front. What do you understand by cyclone? Low pressure center. बाकी की जगह हाई प्रेशर. मतलब आपको इस डायग्राम में ये तब देखना है जब बीच में वार्म एयर ट्रैप हो जाती है एंड साइड में सारी कोल्ड एयर है. यू आर लुकिंग एट दिस फ्रॉम टॉप, ग्राउंड पे क्या हो रहा है. सो इन द सेकेंड स्टेज what is happening here? The warm air is going into the territory of cold air and it is getting lifted upwards. What is happening here? Cold air is coming into the territory of warm air and it is throwing the warm air vertically upwards. Cold front, warm front. Now over the period of time, understand, the fronts will be converted into somewhat like this. क्या है ये? Why it is projecting outwards? It is projecting outwards because the warm air is going into the territory of cold air. It is pushing itself into the territory of cold air and यहाँ पे जाके it is going upwards. मतलब cold air will not be displaced from here. So this is the region of cold air. Cold air is coming here in the territory of warm air, but law of wind is high pressure to low pressure. So सबसे ज़्यादा warm air is concentrated in this narrow region. So गर्मी सबसे ज़्यादा is here, and therefore the cold air will come towards the region of warm air. Can you see? Due to pressure gradient, deflection हो रहा है wind का, and Coriolis force is supporting this deflection. ये deflection नहीं होता had this situation been at the equator, क्योंकि deflection के लिए there has to be Coriolis force. Cold front and warm front. Will the cold air from here be displaced? Is the warm air इतना powerful कि ये push करेगा cold air को? No. So यहाँ पे भी cold air है, क्योंकि warm air is gently rising upwards. यहाँ पे भी cold air होगा because it is throwing the warm air upwards. So ये diagram ऐसे बनते जाएगा. That is, इसको ये diagram ऐसे दिखाता है कि this is the entire area belongs to the cold air. अब धीरे से what is going to happen in the next step? यहाँ से the cold air is going upwards, यहाँ से the warm air is being thrown upward. Warm air is going upwards, warm air is being thrown upwards. So किसका area decrease होगा over the period of time? ये ground situation है. Warm air का area will decrease. किसका area advance हो जाएगा over the period of time? Cold air का area is going to advance. Understanding everyone? This is happening at the ground. Warm air ऊपर जा रही है. Warm air is being thrown upwards, so the area of warm air which is wider here, it is decreasing, and the cold air ka area will advance. So in the third situation, we can say cold air ka area will advance while the warm air ka area will decrease. So this is how the warm air ka area has decreased, and this is how the cold air ka area has advanced. So can I say the cold air is trapping the warm air from all the sides, because warm air is not able to displace the cold air. What is going to happen more? ये area और decrease हो जाएगा. This is cold front, this is warm front. Can you see in our third stage, warm air is being trapped in the center, and धीरे से how it is being trapped in the center, and धीरे से the cold air is surrounding. So this is the stage of cyclogenesis. Frontogenesis results into cyclogenesis. Getting everyone? धीरे अब the area of cold air will be still reduced. Warm air will be still reduced, and there will be maturity of a cyclone. So ये है area of a cold warm air. It is reducing, and the cold air is surrounding the warm air from all the sides. Center में which air is there? Warm air. So what is a cyclone? Low pressure center. That is the warm air on the center, while it is being surrounded on all the sides. So this is how the cyclone has formed and matured. Cold front, warm front. Everyone understanding this diagram? Over the period of time, can I say warm front उधर ही रहेगा? Because it cannot push, it does not have the power to push the cold air. वो खुद से ही ऊपर जा रहा है. But यहाँ से the cold air is having the power to push the warm air. So can I say in the next diagram, cold front थोड़ा और advance होगा, और advance होगा, और advance होगा. So can I say maybe in the fifth, there will be narrowing down of the region जहाँ पे warm air है, and we will call this as warm sector. So there will be narrowing down of warm sector. Warm air will be trapped in a very, very small area. So this is the warm air, and it is being surrounded by cold air from all the sides. Again, this is how the cyclone has matured. अब कोई भी इसके बीच में ट्रैप हुआ तो वो डिपेंडिंग अपॉन वेदर दैट पर्सन इज एट द कोल्ड फ्रंट और वार्म फ्रंट, उसको रेनफॉल, द काइंड ऑफ अ रेनफॉल ही इज गोइंग टू एक्सपीरियंस. कैन आई से द कोल्ड फ्रंट विल फर्दर एडवांस, ये और आगे एडवांस होगा. अल्टीमेटली देयर विल बी कोल्ड एयर ऑन द ग्राउंड एंड वार्म एयर विल बी टोटली अपवर्ड्स. सो व्हाट डू यू कॉल दैट फ्रंट एज? ऑक्लूडेड फ्रंट. क्योंकि the cold front will advance, and there will be no warm air. Warm air totally ऊपर चली जाएगी. Occluded front हमने लिखा है, इसलिए results into death of fronts as well as the death of cyclones. Occlusion. And इसीलिए NCERT में दिया है, मैंने simple language में दिया, when the cold air completely displaces the warm air. Now this 11th standard NCERT is known for tough language. उसने दिया when the cold front completely displaces the warm front, overtakes the warm front. So in the end there will be no warm air, there will be sorry, only cold air on the ground. बाकी यहाँ पे जो वेस्टर्लीज आ रही है वो आती रहेगी, जो ईस्टर्लीज पहले आ रही है दैट इज आगे जाके और फिर से एक नया साइक्लोन बनेगा. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज एन ऑक्लूडेड फ्रंट, एंड दिस फिनोमेना इज नोन एज एन टेम्परेट साइक्लोन. गेटिंग इट? This phenomena is known as a temperate cyclone. This can be a diagram of cyclone, this can be a diagram of cyclone, this can be also a diagram of cyclone. Warm air is trapped in between. So these are the stages in the formation of temperate cyclone. Fine? इस डायग्राम को कोई मीनिंग नहीं है, ये अब कैसे भी लाइंस दिखा दो. द ओनली थिंग, मेक श्योर दैट यू हैव टू शो कोल्ड एयर ऑन द ग्राउंड. करना है तो करो. यू वांट टू ड्रॉ दिस? या रिवर्स्ड. सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर डायरेक्शन विल बी रिवर्स्ड. southern hemisphere में cold air will be coming from ground and therefore we say clockwise. ऐसी जाएगी cold air clockwise. This is anti-clockwise. This diagram का scope बहुत कम है for exam, but this will be for your understanding only. Westerly winds नीचे से आया भाई. There is a continuous westerly wind blowing, easterly is going on. ज़्यादा it depends upon the temperature difference, heating. कितना temperature difference है between cold and warm air mass. So you tell me, cold front and warm front can occur anywhere, whether it is land, whether it is sea, whether it is ocean. कहीं पे भी तो कन्वर्ज हो सकती है warm and cold air. इसलिए जब हम कल डिफरेंस करेंगे between temperate cyclones and tropical cyclone, one of the major differences, tropical cyclones only on water body, क्योंकि it requires latent heat that comes from water, while the temperate cyclones can occur both on land and sea. ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन हीटिंग से है, तो इसलिए समर्स, टेम्परेट साइक्लोन्स थ्रू आउट द ईयर, बस उनको क्या जरूरत है, मिक्सिंग अप ऑफ वार्म एंड कोल्ड एयर. ऑब्वियसली स्ट्रॉन्गर ड्यूरिंग द विंटर सीजन, बिकॉज दैट ब्लू एयर, कोल्ड एयर विल बी वेरी वेरी कोल्ड ड्यूरिंग द विंटर सीजन. कंटिन्यूअस प्रोसेस, साल भर आते रहेंगे. ओनली एरियाज विल कीप ऑन शिफ्टिंग. और यहाँ पे कौन सी जेट स्ट्रीम है ऊपर, वेस्टर्ली या ईस्टर्ली, वेस्टर्ली. सो वंस दे आर फॉर्म्ड दे विल मूव फ्रॉम वेस्ट टू ईस्ट. अभी के डायग्राम में हमने देखा टेम्परेट ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन्स फ्रॉम ईस्ट टू वेस्ट. सो यू कैन टेक डाउन the temperate cyclones originate with frontogenesis. Originate with frontogenesis. And as fronts can occur, on both land and sea, temperate cyclones can originate on both land and sea. Temperate cyclones can originate on both land and sea. कहीं पे भी हो सकता है convergence, both land and sea. Tropical cyclones, just remember abhi in mind difference, only on sea. These are on both land and sea. Second point. The temperate cyclones can originate in any season, because they require convergence of contrasting air masses. but they become stronger during winters. Contrasting air masses, but they become stronger during the winters. Next point, after their origin, the temperate cyclones move from west to east, under the influence of westerly wind circulation. मतलब इसमें दोनों याद रखना, वेस्टर्ली विंड सर्कुलेशन, अपर एयर भी एंड ग्राउंड वेस्टर्लीज भी. वेस्टर्ली विंड्स ऑन द ग्राउंड as well as subtropical westerly या polar westerly jet stream. Next, unlike the tropical cyclones, the temperate cyclones do not have closed isobars. Isobar ये है आइडियल डायग्राम ऑफ ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन. लो प्रेशर, बाहर प्रेशर बढ़ते जाएगा. यहाँ पे नहीं है ऐसा. ऑब्वियसली ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा गर्म होगा, देन ये कम गर्म, ये ज़्यादा कोल्ड. जैसे पोल्स की तरफ जाओगे ज़्यादा कोल्ड, बट यहाँ पे isobars are not closed, they are open. So we do not say they are having a closed isobars. Therefore they are generally referred as V's. They are generally referred as V, only the word V. Next point, in the tropical cyclone, there are different temperatures. In different parts. Suppose this temperate cyclone, right? Not tropical. In the temperate cyclones, there are different temperatures in the different parts. For example, if this is our temperate cyclone, northern part will be, this is in northern hemisphere, so this will be cold, this will be warm. ये भी difference है between temperate and tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclone will be very, very hot only. Last point, as the pressure difference, or what is the other word for the pressure difference? Pressure gradient. Pressure gradient or pressure difference is not greater. Winds flow with low velocity. Winds flow or blow with low velocity. ब्रैकेट में लिखना 35 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर. फ्लो विथ लो वेलोसिटी. यही ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन्स में 128 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर अगर उसने क्रॉस किया विंड ने, तो ही उसको साइक्लोन कहा जाता है. यहाँ पे पूरी एंटायरली डेवलप्ड साइक्लोन इज 35 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर. सो जब भी यहाँ बारिश होगी वैसे विंड दिखेगी नहीं, हमें लगेगी नहीं कि विंड इज ब्लोइंग. फ्लो विथ लो वेलोसिटी. Next point, next subheading, structure. Structure of tropical temperate cyclones. Now this is the structure of a temperate cyclone. Fine. This is from top, right? अब you understand, I am just opening up this temperate cyclone कि हमें ground पे कैसे दिखेगा. Once it originates, वो कौन से direction में move करेगा? From west to east. So the structure of temperate cyclone will be very different from the tropical cyclone. So I am taking this as our ground. ये तो ऊपर से दिख रहा है हमें कि ये ऐसे दिख रहा है, but actually the tropic temperate cyclone will be somewhat like this. What are this? Clouds. This is how the temperate cyclone will look like. Cold air part, so cold air. फिर कौन सा फ्रंट है? वार्म फ्रंट, जेंटल. फिर वार्म एयर का सेक्टर, फिर कोल्ड फ्रंट, एंड देन कोल्ड एयर का सेक्टर. अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस डायग्राम? वी आर जस्ट टेकिंग अ क्रॉस सेक्शनल व्यू ऑफ दिस कि कैसे दिखेगा टेम्परेट साइक्लोन. हैव यू अंडरस्टूड दिस डायग्राम? दिस इज फ्रॉम टॉप. इसको कट करो, गो टू दिस साइड, मतलब ये तो वर्टिकल है. If you look it from horizontally कैसे दिखेगा? This is a cold air, so that is a cold air. उसके बाद what is there? Warm front, so that is a warm front. उसके बाद what is there? Warm air sector. उसके बाद cold front. What happens along the cold front? Tornadoes or cumulonimbus cloud, दोनों है, depending upon where it is formed. And उसके बाद there is an cold air का sector, so cold air का sector. अब ये पूरा जो फिनोमिना है, एंटायर दिस फिनोमिना, दिस इज टेम्परेट साइक्लोन. अनलाइक ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन. ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन कुछ अलग ही है. सो दिस एंटायर फिनोमिना इज अ टेम्परेट साइक्लोन. सो विल कंटिन्यू दिस टुमारो.